Welcome everybody, and thank you. It gives me immense pleasure to be with you all today and actually share some of my thoughts about what future holds for us. So what I'll do is I have been with Swinburne University for a long time. I have been their pro-vice chancellor and helped them develop many new programs, work with industry quite a lot, and feel very blessed that soon I'll be coming over to India and take over the charge of Vice Chancellor at Chinmaya Vishwavidyapeeth. Now, before I go into the main topic, I thought I'll make a few comments about the current pandemic situation. So we know that for last about year and a half, COVID has been ravaging and causing us a lot of problems. So what I did like a researcher, we always look into what has been happening in the past. Can we learn some lessons from there? So here is my research on that. So I've analyzed about last 2000 years, and there have been many such pandemics. The biggest one was called Black Death, 1347 to 1351. The population of the world at that time was very small, about 37 crore, 370 millions. And you will notice that it took about 4 years. Very little medication was available. If something goes wrong, then there was very little by the help of hospital help and putting people on ventilators and ICUs and all that. So roughly about 30 to 50% people died. Remember that number, 1 in 2 or 1 in 3. Major catastrophe, but humanity survived. Then if you trace, there have been many more things like this, but then smallpox was very big. That was 1520. World population 51 crore, half a billion. About 1 in 9 people died. About 11% of the world population died. And then more recently, for which we have a lot more data, is about 100 years back, Spanish flu. World population was 1.8 billion or 180 crore, and about 2.5% people died in that, 1 in 40. So a couple of things to notice. One, that these kind of things do happen regularly. It's just that unfortunately it is happening during our lifetime. Sometimes it happens when it's not in our lifetime, but our parents or their parents would have gone through it. Secondly, the capacity of the humankind, the developments, the advances that have been made are making our ability much better to fight with this disease and make sure that not a lot of people suffer this fatal effect. Now, coming back to COVID-19, you know that world population now is 780 crore, 7.8 billion people. Till yesterday, the numbers were the total deaths were about 40 lakhs or 0.4 millions. That is only 0.05%. And I'm not trying to trivialize death here. I'm not saying that it's okay. But what I'm saying is that if we look at the previous number, 30%, 40%, 11%, 2.5% to 0.05%, much more progress has been made. Now, put it in a different way. If you look at the total world population, by natural causes, 41 million people die every year. 4.1 crore people die every year. That is roughly about 114,000 people every day. In China alone, 28,000 people die. In India alone, 25,000 people die per day because population is very large. So we have to be mindful of that. And basically the lesson which comes from our Eastern civilization from India, this too shall pass. What changes? This too shall pass. Another thing which we get very worried about is that will the world order be there? Is the economy going to survive or will the economy go down? I'm showing you some data for last 2000 years on the left hand side. Here everything has been normalized by 1990. And what you notice is that the economy has been going ahead all the time. There are changes, but not major changes over a longer period of time. There is another very interesting graph, which is on the right hand side. This is axis is very funny. So if you notice on the left hand side, I'm sorry it's not very big, but on the axis, you find that the first tick at the bottom is 1000 years and rest is 1000 years. So it's an uneven distribution, so that I can show you all these details. Interesting thing is, if you see the yellow at the left hand side, that is India. India was contributing 40% of world economy. But then if you see, after about 2 ticks, here about sort of 1000, 1500, so that began to reduce. And then in the middle, which is about sort of 1600, 1900, so on, it's really a few percent. And it's now beginning to increase. But that is not because of pandemic. So that kind of change in economy that many nations saw, you see United States has done very well. China was big, became small, but is now growing and is very big. Japan and other countries. That is basically global empire building. Some countries took advantage of some liberal countries, built their empires, took that wealth. That is what is causing it. So basic message is, this too shall pass. We all are very worried, and worried we should be, because if we are not worried, we will take risk. If we take risk, we may get COVID. If we get COVID, there is a risk that we may lose our life. So one has to be very risk averse and very careful. So worry is not bad, but unnecessary panic and paranoia is bad. So that's what we should do. Now I want you to think in terms of history, and I want you to consider maybe last 15, 20, 30,000 years. And I want to now talk about how economy develops, how work is found, who will pay for something that you want to do. So very simple mental picture I'm trying to create here. Long time back, the life was hunter-gatherer. Very few people were there on this earth. And then all the fruits of the tree, animals in the jungle were there. Humans will go there. If they were hungry, they will go get some fruits if they're vegetarian, or go and get an animal if they are non-vegetarian. That will last a day or two or one meal, and then they do that again. And what were the skills required? If we were to live in those times, the skills will be strength, so that you can go and get your food. Secondly, agility. So you go to get some food, and suddenly you find that as a big elephant comes, or another animal comes towards you, you run fast or climb a tree or save yourself. So strength and agility, that is needed. Slowly, humans became agrarian. They began to organize agriculture, put some seeds into the ground, reap the benefits, but that takes 3 months. So for those 3 months, you have to have enough food in your house so that you survive that. You have to protect that crop that you have sown, cut it, and then store that seed again for next year. So that kind of organizational skill became important. So you find that strength is needed, agility is needed, but being able to organize all that is also a skill that was needed. Then past thousands of years. Unfortunately, in India, we missed that phase, mostly because of we being under different power. Otherwise, 5,000, 6,000, 3,000 years back, India has been doing a lot of scientific work, progressing science. But unfortunately, when Industrial Revolution came, we could not take benefit. In fact, whatever we had was destroyed. But if we forget that, then what were the skills required? Human labor was replaced by machine. Machines will do the work. Machines will, like a tractor, till the farm. Machines, rather than you pull the water out of the well, will pull that water for you. You running a printing press, machine will do it. So all those things are happening. So ability to operate those machines and being able to work with many people, teamwork, that became a key thing. You find that if you had that skill, getting a job is easier. Then about 50 years back came information age, and very interesting. Zero started from India, but because of foreign powers, we could not make that very big in India. But zero is the foundation of all computer age, everything. We must never forget that fact. But what is needed for winning in the information age is being able to process that information. Lot of information comes. How do you process this? How do you find what is good, what is bad, what is right, what is wrong? What is the wisdom in that data? That is key thing now. You type something in Google, it will give you millions of pages. How do you make sense of it? How do you use it for your advantage? How do you use it for society's advantage? Those are the key things. Collaboration. Computer age, information processing gives us advantage. I am in Melbourne in Australia. You are in India in many different cities. We all can talk, we all can collaborate. So ability to collaborate is also key skill now. We will make us successful. So remember these, because these will come back again. Now what's happening is internet is there, modern devices are there, and I will touch upon this also. So new era is anywhere, anyone, any device. Many of you will not remember, but I remember when connections used to be only from PC or Windows or only from Mac. And there was great restriction on which software can you use or can't you use to do things. Not anymore. You get a link, you click the button, whether you're on a mobile phone, whether you are using iPhone or Samsung or Realme or desktop or any device, it automatically connects. So simple. That kind of a skill is now needed. Can you think in terms of anywhere, anyone, any device? Now, another thing we have to understand, and this coming from India, we all understand it very, very well, but let me repeat it again. This is what is called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In India, our rishis have known it for a very long time. So at the bottom of this pyramid, at the right hand side of the picture, we have physiological needs. Like we know roti, kapda or makan, like food, clothes and shelter, basic human needs. So we have to feed ourselves. After all those needs are met, we have to secure ourselves so that when we are sleeping, nobody comes and animal doesn't come and harm us or kill us. House is needed. And all that is there when then we need some kind of esteem, some kind of love, some kind of self-actualization. India, we know, is the best place for all that. We have been working in this area and still are. So what is happening there is that as we grow, our needs become more and more and more. Now look at left-hand side. Humans develop, societies develop, countries develop, and they all have their needs. As a human, we have one need living in a city. But then in a country, defending the whole country against another aggressor is another need. So those needs are different. But then those needs have to be fulfilled. Somebody has to do that work to meet that need. So if you have skills to fulfill that need, you will have a job. You can do whatever you like. Nobody minds. It becomes a hobby. You can have a hobby. I can have a hobby. I have a hobby watching waves. I can go. I'm not saying I have, but I can have that hobby and then watch the sea, how waves are coming and going. But not many people are going to pay me any money for that. But if I have a skill, I'm a scientist, I can design something, build something, say, I need this, I'll give you some money. So that is what I'm trying to point out. So if you want to look at future needs, very simple. Look at how technology is going, what kind of needs will be there. And then if you develop your skills so that you can fulfill those needs, jobs you will get, money you will get. That's a very, very simple way of looking at this and analyzing that. Okay. So from there, let me now tell you what is driving the economy. You have, I'm pretty sure, seen these words, but let me repeat them again. Industry 4.0. So what is 4.0? It's a very simple name, and you find it gets connected with Industry 4.0, Society 4.0, Health 4.0, everything now people say. But it came from Industrial Revolution because it was how the human labor was replaced by machine labor, how they were connected together, how they were computerized. And then finally what we have now is humans and machines can work together. Fourth revolution. Basically, what they are saying is, so nowadays devices can be connected, devices can sense, devices can send data, and then a central device can take a decision, which in the past humans used to take. So that is making things become much cheaper, but it's a little bit dangerous, because if you have that skill, computer will do it. So what do you need to do so that you remain in job? Artificial intelligence. What is AI? AI basically is speaking two things. One, that machines can learn. So how can they learn? The very simple robots now, very cheap now. You take their hand, you make that hand do something, it will automatically pick that up. Algorithm will pick that up. Other way is that if there's a lot of information available, from that information, a machine can see this is how a decision is taken. So rather than we looking at 2 or 3 things, it can look at thousands of things. And that data is teaching the machine what to do. Big data. Big data is basically, now you can collect all this data. You are having a mobile in your pocket, you are moving around. Google knows where have you been at what time. It can give you a timeline of your movement. When I start from my office, it knows that I'm going home. It will immediately tell me it will take so many minutes to reach your home in a car. If you follow that route, it's 1 minute slower, 1 minute faster, whatever. It knows I'm at that time generally leaving my office and going to home. If I go somewhere else, it gets it wrong, but once a while only. Data analytics. You have all this data. What do you do with data? How do you analyze that data? Then health 4.0. Same thing. We get our tests, and now you can have an iWatch or other kind of watches. They are continuously monitoring your pulse rate. They can see how that pulse is going. They can tell you whether something is going to go wrong with you or not. They can connect it with weather. They can see what people in your area are noticing as far as diseases are concerned. So that is their information processing. The need for doing more and more data processing is massive. So quantum computing, everything is sitting in the cloud now. Basically, it's not sitting in the cloud literally, but basically it's not sitting on your device. It is somebody somewhere in the world is storing it. So if you lose your device, or if you run out of the memory, it doesn't really matter. It's all somewhere else. You pay for that, and that's all. Space is becoming very big. And I'll show you another later on how people have made incredible amount of money in space travel, launching satellites. And you know, India is #1 in launching satellites. So where is this future economy? You may be thinking that that's all right, sir, but I mean, is it only US and Australia and UK and Europe where all this is happening? And I'm saying no, it is happening all over the world. You may say, where? Is it happening in India? Yes, it's happening in India. It's happening in all the places. So if you look at United Nations, they consider what are the needs of the country. And those needs, they have put in 17 bullet points. Poverty. Every country has poverty. Even richest countries have poverty. They may have less people who are very poor, but they do have. Poorer countries have more of those people who are, but that is there. Then hunger, health, education, long list is there. You can go through. You can create your skills in any area and you will be in demand. But you have to find a solution to the society's needs, humans' needs. Now, this is a picture which is typical of India, but typical of any other country, especially in developing world. On the left-hand side, bottom picture, you can see a cow, and you see it's a primitive economy, a small village, couple of huts, and labor is still animals. So that is industry 1.0. Okay. Now there you find that not much is happening. See the second picture, you find it's now a town. You can see that motorcycle is there. In a sense, it's industry 2.0. Rather than you running yourself or sitting on a horse and going, you are now on a machine, much faster. And then you begin to see that people have got fruits and people are there buying things, selling things, making money. Economy is now developing. And the third one is a very modern city. But if I zoom into a modern city, what you notice is that there are some very nice looking houses and some decent, okay looking houses. So what is happening is that there are some people who are earning a lot of money, some who are not earning a lot of money. So opportunities are there. Whatever you want to, if you have the desire to uplift society, you can find it there. Either by living in this multi-rise and giving jobs to many people, or working in that low-rise blue type house, and then helping others, things like that. So all those opportunities are there. Another big issue you notice, there is social inequality of wealth. You can do something to alleviate that, make things better for everybody. But you notice all skills are required. Everything is needed. Big opportunities to find work is there, but it has to be useful to society. And then you have a possibility of making a change to a person's life. Now let me show you some data. So LinkedIn, most of us know, is like professionals Facebook. Hmm. So they get many adverts also. They analyze how people are moving, what's happening, and they survey to find out what are the skills in demand. This is 2020 data, so about a year old, but it still is sort of very similar even this year. So you find blockchain, cloud computing, analytical reasoning. Remember, analytical reasoning. When you are reasoning out, can you support it with data? Rajesh, oh, I think this happens. No, just thinking is not good enough. Prove it with data. Show that proof. Then and only then it becomes a good piece of decision. AI, we have already talked about. UX, user experience, very important. So much is happening, that how, and so much information is available. How do you make experience for user very easy? Business analysis, affiliate marketing, sales, all that stuff is there, hard skills. But then on the right hand side, you see soft skills, creativity. Problems are there. Can you be creative in solving those problems? Persuasion. It'll be very nice if I want something, somebody comes and does it for me, but people don't. Can I persuade them? Can you persuade them? That skill is needed. Collaboration, as I showed you, computers mean more and more people can come together, but can you collaborate with them? Or when you talk to them, they run away from you. If you don't have that collaborative skill, collaborative mindset, the ways to see other people's point of view, that skill is not there. You have to develop it further. Adaptability, like you want somebody to do something for you, they also want you to do something for them. So how do you do that? Emotional skills. Something goes wrong and you get very, very, very upset, takes you 3 months to get out of it. That's not very good. So like some people get cold within a day, they are okay. Some people get cold, takes them 3 weeks. Who is stronger? The one who takes a day. Emotionally, who is stronger? Who takes a day to get over any mission? And we know in India, our scriptures tell us how to do that, how to develop those skills. So those are very important skills. Now, missing skills, stop missing skills. So this is very important, very interesting. In 2019, it's about year and a half old. In the United States, there's a Society for Human Resource Management. These are people who recruit employees for large organizations. So they know what is missing in interview, why people get rejected. Now notice what is at top. Problem solving, critical thinking, innovation, creativity. It is not the sort of bottom of the pile that, oh, science, engineering, medicine, and all that. No, that is okay. A lot of people have that. But can you solve a problem even when you have that degree? Can you be innovative? That is the thing. Ability to deal with complexity and ambiguity. How apt is this? And why I have not given you a new data is because I want you to understand this is 2019. COVID was not there. COVID came later. Now, during COVID, what happens is nothing is known. We don't know whether variant Delta will be there, or is that the last one? Or Lambda is there, is that the last one? How fast will it spread? What will happen? When will it open? When will it go? I have no idea. Nobody has any idea. Very complex, very ambiguous. Can you still make a decision with all that ambiguity and complexity? So in industry, this is always the case. So they know that ability is needed. Somebody who has that ability will survive COVID also, no issues. Problem solving, can you solve that problem? COVID is a problem, solve it. Those kind of things. After that only comes trade skills and other things. So remember that these social skills are more important nowadays. Now, what about future jobs? Some very interesting data I'm showing you, which is, I just wanted to cover Australian data as well. So this is from McKinsey, Australia and automation economy, 2019 data. And I'm just showing you a few things which they said were happening in 2016, 5 years back, and what will happen in 2030, 10 years hence. You find that physical and manual labor was 30%. Now they are predicting should be only 22%. And then you notice cognitive skills, 15 to 30%, advanced cognitives, about the same. And then social and emotional skills, they needed more, 21 to 25%, technological, 12 to 17%. Remember that. Collaborative skills, technological skills, IT skills. I'm speaking to you using Zoom. So that is also technical skill. I don't have to be able to design a Zoom software. You don't have to be able to design a car to drive a car. As long as you can use a car, you're good enough. So technical skills in that sense. So future jobs require a combination of skills. Those days are gone when you were sitting in your office, typing on a typewriter or later on a computer and printing it. No, everything is linked together. So ability to link with people, work with people, a key important skill. But you have to have your inherent other skills as well. So that is where the combinatorial skill set becomes very important for future of work. There are many centers in my university, Swinburne. There is a center which looks into how future of work will change. And the director there and I get along very well. I talk to him quite. That is what he says, that this is what will be needed. Social emotional skills, entrepreneurial skills. How can you do things with little resource or no resource? Enterprising people do that all the time. Otherwise, what's the problem? You say, oh, give me all the money, give me all the things, I'll do it. Well, what's the fun then? Now, this is another thing. COVID-19 has shown us something. Number one, it forced us to work remotely. You like it or not, you have to work remotely. I want to come to India and start sort of be physically present. I can't. Australian government doesn't allow me to travel. So what do? I'm not sitting that, okay, I can't do. No, I can. I can use Zoom, I can use email, I can use phone, I can use WhatsApp, and work I can. Let me do that. Localization. Another interesting fact. If travel is not allowed, globalization is happening and localization is happening as well. Physically localization, mentally globalization. Very interesting. Have a look at that. So that will affect travel, freight. And the other thing is there's an incredible focus on cleanliness. So Swachh Bharat comes into action. But why Swachh Bharat? In India, we have always said for thousands of years, if you want to have some food, wash your hands, mouth, face, feet. I used to think that, okay, hands I can understand. I'm eating with my hands. But feet and face, why should somebody wash? The COVID is showing that maybe in the past there was a disease like this. So they're saying, no, no, no. Look into all those things. Important. So that is coming back. And then technology for remote working existed. Zoom is not 1 year old. It's old. WebEx has been there 15 years. I've been using WebEx. But then now it has become so easy. Anyone can use it. I remember setting up centers which will cost about 1 crore to just get our other campus in Malaysia connected. Now, free of cost, just use your mobile. That is the role of technology. Now, question for you is, can you use this technology and experience to create new needs and meet existing needs? And remember, skills, products, processes to meet individual and societal needs. If you can do that, you will find that people will give you a lot of money. No issues with that. Enabling technology is anyone should be able to use it, anywhere they should be able to use it, any platform, any device, any algorithm. Remember that. And then no problems. This is another one. Some of you ask me, what is a gig economy? So I'll tell you quickly. Gig economy is freelance work. You are working, somebody needs your help, they pay you money, you do that. In India, a lot of people do that at lower level, like people who you employ for a day. And others are like big lawyers. I mean, you go there once for one case and that's all. That's a freelance. So that kind of is happening. Now you see Uber is there, Ola is there. In India, all these services are there. Food delivery services, trades people, all that is happening. But then you find there's some advantages and some disadvantages. Advantages are very flexible. You can do it when you like, you don't do it when you don't like it, you don't like the time, you don't, all that stuff is there. But the problem is that uh, you don't have the security of job in that. Other jobs will give you sickness benefit, pension benefits, and at least some security. This one does not give you that. So that benefit comes at a cost. So remember, whatever suits you. Now, before closing, I'll take one or two more slides and then finish. Now, pandemics, even though they worry us, still opportunities are there. In fact, pandemics create more opportunities. Suddenly, you find that the need to do things without touching it and delivering it and looking after people and cleanliness, all this stuff is there. New needs, but can you fulfill those needs? If you can, wealth be created. I'm showing you 100 years of data here. Many countries, it's very dense, so not much you can read, but still, you find that during these 100 years, Spanish flu, I told you about it, AIDS came, some of you will remember SARS came, many of you will remember MERS came, 2 world wars were fought, Cold War was fought, global financial crisis, maybe 2 of those, many things happened. But the growth in economy, growth in humanity has continued. Another thing, I'll show you 2 of these. One is that if you look at this, how wealth has changed. So I'm showing you some of the richest people in the world. Jeff Bezos of Amazon, his wealth increased by $75 billion. That's unbelievable amount of money. Thousands of crores. Bill Gates, $7.3 billion. 35,000 crores. Mark Zuckerberg, $22 billion. Bernard, he's dropped by $23 billion. Why? Because he is in luxury goods. Others are in technology stock. Even Mukesh Ambani, you notice Geo is there and all that stuff. So tech, because tech enabled remote working, wealth has gone up. Now this is exactly 1 year's data. Last 1 year, Elon Musk, in 1 year, he made $144 billion. Unbelievable amount of money. He's into space, he's into electric vehicles, societal needs are there, he's meeting them. And then Jeff Bezos, incredible amounts of money. But I want to tell you another equation now. Question is that, okay, money is made, but is this enough to get you happiness? All this money will make you happy? So very simple question. Can an expensive mattresses buy you sleep? We are very familiar. You early morning, you are driving, you find there are some people on the side of the footpath happily sleeping. The traffic doesn't disturb them, noise doesn't disturb them, the pollution doesn't disturb them. I don't like it. It's personally not very good for me, because as a society, we should be looking after them. Nobody should be sleeping like this. They should have a decent house and all that. But anyway, at least they are able to sleep. Then in the Western world, you find people that will spend 3 lakhs on a very, very nice bed. They can't sleep. Money is there, peace is not there. We need both. Okay. And now happiness is more than just money, power, fame, and beauty. You see all these very famous people, their lives are not very happy. I can tell you that. You can Google and find out yourself. Okay. So what is success? So success is basically being very global in your mind, so that you can anywhere in the world get a job, meet anybody's need, whether the company is in India or in the US, wherever. But you have very deep roots. A tree can become very big only when the roots are deep. And that is where you have to remain Indian in your heart. Develop those deeper roots. Okay. So remember that global in mind, so that you can fulfill all the needs of the society all over the world, but Indian in heart. You learn from our Indian values and have very strong deep roots. So key takeaways. Number one, I know COVID is there. We don't know third wave is coming or not coming and whatever. But remember, this too shall pass. It will pass. Then use this time well. You're sitting at home, can't do much. Evaluate yourself. See what your passions are, what your skills are, what the market needs are. Most importantly, will that passion and skill can be used for helping somebody? Then somebody will pay you money for doing that work. Evaluate the job market. Look into Naukri.com. Look into what jobs are there and find out what skills do you need, what skills are they looking for. And then develop those skills in yourself. And many opportunities are there anywhere, anyone, any device, any algorithm, those kind of things. You may consider even starting a business, starting, all those opportunities are there. So I will stop here and hand over to Satish ji now.
Thank you so much, Ajay ji. It was a wonderful and highly informative session. So there are a few questions from the participants' side. We have one very basic question from a participant. He is asking what is skill and how to develop it. This is the question he had asked. A participant had asked.
So basically, a skill is something that you can do well. It can be just walking well. You can become marathon walker, win a gold medal for India. You can be very skilled in, let's say, making food. You can become master chef. You can be very skilled in writing a computer program. You can become a very nice programmer. So a skill is anything that you are doing. It can be physical, it can be mental, it can be persuasive. Anything will come under that. How to develop it? So some skills come by, most skills you need practice. So try to find out what is there and then try to practice it more and more and more. You may need to develop those skills like some analytical reasoning skills. So there are techniques for doing it, problem solving skills. There are techniques for doing it. How do you understand what the problem is, analyze that problem, find the sort of root cause of that, attack that problem, implementation, those kind of skills. Some people are very good in convincing everybody to do what they want. But those skills can be learned.
Ajayji, one participant had asked, he asked like this: you have worked in many international institutes, international universities, and from your experience, can you share something about our Indian universities or Indian education, and what opportunity we have to actually to bring our skills?
So I can understand. So one thing which I notice is in Western universities, and I have spent all my life in education sectors. I studied in India, I studied also in Cambridge, I taught in India for 3-4 years, and then I also taught 30 years in Western world. But I've been working with India quite a lot. What I find is that in India, our student quality is generally very good, very good. But I find that the value addition in Western world is much better. So in Western world, the focus on student is stronger. And that is what we have to change. And so from teaching, we have to go into learning. that how a student is learning, that we have to do. And many universities are doing it now. So it brings us closer to, I will say, our traditional Indian Gurukul. So if you look at Gurukul, what Gurukul was doing was that Guru will work with the Shishya. Shishya may be very, let's say, slow in picking up things. Guru will go very slowly. Shishya is very fast in picking up things. Guru is also going very fast with the Shishya. Shishya doesn't understand one particular thing because that example is not easy for him or her. Guru will give another example, yet another example. So Guru used to make sure that learning by student is complete. We just have to come back to our original system. That's all. Then we can be much better than anywhere else.
Thank you, Ajit. Satish, a participant, his name is Satish P. He had raised a question. He wrote like this: as skills matters the most, whether Indian education system should be changed in way of teaching because they are running back on marks. What's your comments on this?
Yeah, you got it absolutely right. That is what it is now. In fact, just yesterday night, and there is a very big university here. The vice chancellor there is well known to me. He said, let's catch up. And we were discussing that what is the future of work now? This is the future of work. So companies nowadays are not worried about degree all that much. What they are worried about is skills. And the question then becomes, how do we develop those skills in students? And that is a big question even in Western world. So even in the Western world, they have not done it 100% yet. But future is only skills, no doubt in my mind about it. Those skills will be more and more needed. If you have the right kind of skills, you will get a job easily. And the other thing is that the skill set will keep on changing as well, because technology is evolving very rapidly. So you will have to continuously change you. So, but that is also not bad. If you look at our traditional Indian education, Swadhyaya was very big. Self-study or learn to learn. How do you learn? We are all learning all the time. But how do you make it easier for yourself? So yes, skills are the ones. And India will also change. NEP 2020, National Education Policy 2020, is now talking a lot about those skills. Unfortunately, I find one thing a little bit concerning. In India, people think that skills are always low grade. But no, skills can be very high grade. I mean, surgeon is very highly skilled person. What is surgeon doing? Surgeon is operating. He's holding a tool and doing something, cutting somebody's leg and putting a new bone in and all that stuff. Carpenter does the same thing, but we always think of the carpenter and a low grade carpenter not getting any money when it comes to skills. No, that is not right. Skills are very high level as well. Everything is a skill. Skills are important. Future.
Yes, Ajit. Ajay, we also have a few questions specifically related with few of our programs. So people had asked with the BCom program, I think with the teaching and school related, I think there are few people are asking. Okay, I think there's also a teacher among the audience. And there are questions, I think a few from MSc Psychology and BSc Applied Psychology. Also, there are a few people asking questions. So specifically, the questions are all, it's like one question is like, I'm right now planning to join BCom program. So how can I prepare to learn this new age skills? That is one question. And another question has come like, I'm planning to take a language. So maybe, I don't know whether Sanskrit or English, but the student is saying how it is related, these skills that you mentioned, how it is related to my interest. So such specific questions are there.
Yeah, I can answer those. So remember one thing, that skill, if I consider IT skills are not that I must be able to write a computer program. That is not the right thing. Right thing is that, am I able to use a device which is IT enabled? That's all. Cars came 100 years back. 120 years back, not more than that. Before that, horses and horse-drawn carriages and all those ruts and all that were there. But then you don't have to be a car designer to drive a car. You can become a Sanskrit teacher, but would you always walk on foot? Or can you sit in a car and drive it to somebody's place? Driving skill and Sanskrit, they go together. No problem. Now consider more nearer to that example. If a student knows how to use, let's say, an app, designs an app, or get somebody to design an app, and he wants to become a teacher of Sanskrit. Now, IT and Sanskrit, are they together? Yes, I don't see any problem. The student can teach Sanskrit using a laptop or iPhone or any other phone. So rather than everybody coming to this person and only 10 students come, now suddenly it's a very good teacher who say, if you can't come to me, don't worry, you just log on using Zoom and I'll teach you. 1,000 people can reach this person. So suddenly job prospects are much better. Money is much better. But is that a computing requirement? No. The person just needs to know the right kind of program. And it's much easier now. In my days, it was very difficult. Now is anyone can use it, but they must be able to use it. So there's psychology is there. Same kind of thing. A lot of data is available now. What people are feeling, how they are feeling. A lot of that information is there. Can you take that data and figure out when people are feeling bad, when people are feeling good, and how they feel bad, how they feel good? Now, for that, you don't have to be a computer scientist to analyze. There's software that will do it for you. But you must be able to say, yep, I'll use that. So that is how I see how these skills become important. Now, what are we doing about that in Chinmaya Vishwavidyapit? My thoughts are that future is all going to be technological, no doubt in my mind. We all are, even now, whether we are reading Sanskrit or we are reading IT or using mobile phones. So that is skill we have. We are always happy to go buy a car and motorcycle and a scooter if needed, go a long way away, going to America. We are not going to walk up to America. We'll take a flight. All that is, so that what we are going to do in Chinmaya Vishwavidyapit is to allow students to learn those kind of basic skills. But don't think those skills are only programming skills. That's a mistake. Just being able to use the right kind of applications, the right apps, right devices, and then using them to do whatever you want to do. Teach Sanskrit, teach Sanskrit, teach Vedas, teach Vedas. If you want to, let's say, have tasks, whatever you want to do. Commerce, do commerce. A lot of computer packages are there which are used in submitting, let's say, returns. Governments sometimes are saying, use this package and submit your IT. If a student knows how to use that package, it is very good. So that they have to know accounting. They also need to know that package. So that is, and we are creating a space in our curriculum to link with all those industry standard packages, which students can learn, master, and then when it comes to getting a job, employers say, yep, you know that, come and work in my company. That is the way to look at that.
There is a very interesting question, I think, from Srinathji. So he had asked, has specialization in an area gone out of vogue? Is the future looking more managers than experts?
No. So there's a need for both. What is happening is that in the past, each device used to take a very long time for whole humanity to use. Nowadays, technology, especially successful one, becomes available to everybody very quickly. If you consider how long would it have taken cars to be available for everybody, maybe about 80 years. Was there a need for travel faster? Yes. But it still took a long time. TV probably took about, I think, 30 years or so before many people had access to TV. Simple old style phones took a very long time. Mobiles took much shorter time. These modern smartphones are taking virtually no time. New technology comes. Consider all these algorithms, consider all these Zooms and WhatsApps. they become popular very, very quickly and over a very big place. So the need for expertise to develop them is there big, huge. It is not going down. It is always there. It always will be there. But then how many people are using it becomes immediately massive. Billion people using it. So need for teaching that is much bigger than in the past. Need for being able to manage people who can run those things is also much bigger because it's happening very quickly. That's the difference.
Ajay, there's a question from Unni Krishnan. He's asking, in the light of your very thought-provoking presentation, where do you place CVV from a career point of view?
So in my view, what we are doing in CVV is absolutely spot on. Like I showed you some data that those problem solving skills, creativity, human skills, collaboration, those are societal skills. It is the, unfortunately, we don't look at them in modern sense. We just feel very happy if we can point out 5,000 years back. But no, those were needed then, those are needed even now. We just have to contextualize them. We can do them very easily. And then what happens is that domain knowledge is also needed. It's a combinatorial skill set. We need to be able to have expertise in whatever we are doing. Plus, we need the ability to work with a lot of people. That is the change now. So we can bring our CKS, which is very simple domain skill, or IKS, which is very simply connecting with society, doing things for society, not feeling upset and not getting annoyed for nothing, managing ourselves very well. So I see absolute alignment there. Contextualization is needed. That's all. We need to contextualize it. And in contextualizing, we have to use our wisdom or traditions, but we have to use modern technology and modern world, which is what our rishis has always done that. We have oldest civilization, but our Aryabhattas and all our sort of modern things that we talk about, they're very new, 1,000 years old. 1,500, 1,400 years old, metallurgy, water conservation, Chola Empire, their building making techniques, all that 1,000 years. So it has been evolving all the way through. We just need to say, hey, look, 1,000 years we were pinned down to the ground because of whatever reasons. Now we are not. We'll stand up and we'll run very fast. We can run very fast. That is what is needed. And we will do that.
Yeah. Thank you. Ajay, there is a question from Jayesh. He's asking, Indian Darshan and knowledge is experience-based and Western science is experiment-based. So if somebody wants to do scientific research on IKS, what should be the approach of Indian researchers working on Indian scripture research?
Good. Yes, very good. Now, I'll tell you one thing, very interesting, very interesting. There's a need for both. Now, I'll ask you a question, or maybe I'll just answer that question. What is machine learning? Machine learning is just experience. Drawing conclusions out of experience. How does a machine learn? What is data analytics? Data computer is not generating. It is collecting data about us, data about weather, data about everything. Then it says that out of this data, what is the pattern? What has India been doing? They look at that pattern, whether it is Jyotishi or something else, and they find a pattern and say that, okay, this is how you will behave. We have been doing machine learning for thousands of years. Machine learning is there. So machine learning has its own place, no doubt. It always existed. We just need to contextualize it, JSG, nothing else. If you see machine learning is purely experiential, there's nothing there, nothing there. But it can, with the use of a computer, look at thousands of parameters at for each point at the same time. So it gives us a massive capacity. Now, I am very happy to say computer revolution came from India. So why should I leave that computer if it comes to using it to doing my job? Happily do it. So no problem. And then experiments, those are needed as well. So experiments become that anything is that, can you test it? We can test it. It was done. If you see old scriptures and all stuff about how Ayurveda came and how traditional rishis gave 5,000 shishya were there, that okay, you analyze 5,000 different plants and tell me what is happening. So those experiments were also done in India. Both were done. We should do both.
Again, there is a very specific question from a student, I think. Her name is Abhirami. So she's asking, I have an idea about my career, but no idea how to achieve it. So can you help?
Look, if you have an idea of what do you want to do, keep focused on that, dream will come true. If you want, you can just sort of send details, more details. I'm happy to tell you how to approach it. I've never found anybody who wanted to do something and they couldn't do it. So anything that you want to do, you'll be able to achieve it. If you want to say more, say that, or send an email. Send an email, we will answer that. Very happy to help you.
Yeah, thank you, Ajay ji. I think we have almost finished questions. There are very few very specific program related questions. A few students had asked about MSc Psychology program, details about the programs. I think that we can interact with them personally through email. We can send the details through email.
If they can share their emails,
yeah,
and that specific question, then we should be able to answer those.
Yeah, they wanted to know about specializations. So such details they wanted.
Yeah, and they are in the most welcome anytime. So we are there basically to help our students. So any question they want to ask, they should.
Yeah. Okay, we can connect directly to them. Yeah. So thank you, Ajay ji. It was actually a very informative talk. And in this talk, you had started explaining the new age economy, and then the requirement of a student to get trained in this new age skills that's pointed out. And then you also connected it with Abraham Maslow's need hierarchies, that is the basic human needs, how it is connected, you have actually explained. And you also explained the dynamics of the fourth generation industry, and what a student needs to know about and what a student needs to do to achieve that. And you also exposed us the skill sets required for this new age jobs or new age society. So thank you so much, Ajay ji. It's indeed a very informative session. So on behalf of the entire CVV, I likes to thank you. Thank you. I also like to thank all the participants who had attended here. And if any such doubts or any queries, if you have, you also can mail us, or you can also contact with us through our contact phone numbers. Also, this is a series of events. This is the one of the event we had hosted today. Like this, we have another event on 14th July. That's about Leave for Teachers and Touch Lives. So that will be delivered by Professor Alan Abrio. So he is a former principal of Dr. Dada Vaidya College of Education, Goa, and former Dean of Faculty of Education, Goa Universities. So I request please join to that event on 14th July 2021 at 4:30 p.m. Please join with us. So thank you again, all of you, for joining with us. So yeah, signing off. Thank you.
Thank you.